Hey everybody, it's Crys'Dawna and welcome to my YouTube. This is my channel. So today we're gonna go over how to get the perfect metallic finish on furniture. Metallics can sometimes be one of the harder paints to work with, especially because it is just the way it's made. You get a lot more brush strokes than you do in other paints. And so I'm gonna show you guys how to get a brush stroke free finish and how to just get an amazing looking piece that is metallic and beautiful and awesome and all that good stuff. So we're gonna be back and I'm gonna get all the supplies and then we're gonna talk about what we need and then we are gonna go over exactly how to do it. So I'm gonna go over each metallic that is offered by Dixie Belle, okay? And there are two different ways that you can do this. So I have done it where I have done the metallic straight on bare wood, but it takes a lot, like 4 or 5 coats. And so to minimize that, what you wanna do is you wanna do a base coat of one of Dixie Belle's paints first, and then do the metallics over it. It just cuts down the time and it also gives you a richer look. So what we're gonna do is talk about each metallic color and the color of paint that I suggest that you use as a base coat for underneath your metallics. So right here we have Cobalt blue. So that's what we're gonna be working with today is the Cobalt blue with Dixie Belle. And I am gonna be using Pacific, okay? So I'm gonna be putting Pacific over Cobalt blue, base coat, metallic, okay? Then the next one is Caribbean, okay? This one is more of like a teal color. And so I suggest that you use Peacock underneath it. So Peacock is a good one to use as a base coat. Then we have Deep Woods, which is a green color, metallic, and Palmetto is a really good one to use underneath that one as your base coat. There are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 metallics now. It's the new one-step line by Dixie Belle. Instead, they used to have two steps. So here's the next one, Wedding Belle, which is a light yellow color, and I suggest that you use Lemonade as the base coat for this one, okay? Now we have Silver Bullet, and the Dixie Belle color I suggest is Manatee Gray. These two go really well together. Gold Digger, which is one of my favorites, and I suggest that you use Colonel Mustard underneath it, okay? Then we have Steel Magnolia, and I think that Dried Sage would be a really good one. Dried Sage and Driftwood would also be a good one, but Dried Sage, because Steel Magnolia has a kind of like a greenish brown tint, it would be perfect with Dried Sage. And then we have Rosé, and my favorite for the base coat would be Tea Rose, okay? So these are all the colors that I suggest as base coats underneath your metallics. That's the first step in getting a really good finish, is doing a base coat. You only need one base coat, one coat of the base for underneath. You don't need to get crazy. You don't need to do a bunch. It's just that base coat kind of helps you so that you're not having to use as many layers of the metallics. So we're going to get the supplies and then I'll be right back. For this, again, we used Cobalt blue. It's just one coat of Cobalt blue. I really like to use my Dixie Belle chip brush, premium chip brush. I'll show you why in a second. I'm gonna get some grade 000 steel wool. I'm gonna get my Dixie Belle mini brush. This is just whatever one you prefer, but this is a nice synthetic brush. You're gonna make sure that this is damp. I also have my mister bottle on hand just in case I need it. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna open our metallic. This is Pacific. And I'm gonna make sure that I stir it nice and good so that way it is super even. This is really important that you stir it, especially your metallics. I mean, you need to stir everything, and I'm just gonna set this aside. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our synthetic brush. It is damp. You wanna make sure that it's damp. And then we're going to move up here. So we're gonna move up here. Let me adjust the light. this is only one coat of Dixie Belle's Cobalt Blue. So I'm gonna get you the paint. So we're gonna dip it in the paint and we're gonna wipe it off. We don't want a ton. We want just enough that it's gonna be thin layers, okay? So we're gonna do thin layers, long brush strokes. Remember, long brush strokes. Get more paint. Long brush strokes. And what I like to do is I like to take my Belle brush and kind of just, it almost erases any kind of brush strokes that there are. Lightly, like dry brush over it. And then we're gonna allow that to dry. Okay, actually what we're gonna do is paint the rest of it. But we're gonna allow it to dry after we paint the rest of it and we'll go on to the next step. So we're gonna let this first coat dry. If you can see that there's really no brush strokes on here. And if you noticed in the video, I was only going one way with it. I was going from left to right, right to left, left to right. I wasn't going left to right, up and down like this. The only time I did short, choppy brushes were right here by the edges so that I could get the paint to move so I could do my longer brush strokes. So make sure when you're working with metallics, you're doing left to right, and that's it. Don't go all over the place, just left to right. So our first layer of the metallic is dry, and as you can see, just going over it left to right in thin coats with that first base coat and having a damp brush has really given us a nice finish. But just to be safe, in between coats, so I'll put one more coat of metallic on here, and just to be safe, what I like to do is I like to take my 000 grade steel wool. Some people like to use a really fine sandpaper, but I like the steel wool because it's flexible and it allows me to get into these areas and I'm not having to get crazy. So what you're gonna do is same thing as if you were painting. Just go over the piece lightly, gently from left to right. And this will help alleviate any brush strokes that there are, and it will help knock down any kind of debris that had gotten into it. And just try to be very gentle with it and don't push down too hard. The 000 probably won't distress it because it is so fine, but just to be safe, we're not getting crazy. We're just kind of lightly going over it. And that's what we're gonna do on this entire piece is go over it with the steel wool. If you feel like your piece needs more coats, then you will do this in between each coat. So we're gonna go over this entire piece, every part. Now on these side areas right here, if you didn't notice when I painted, I went vertical up and down. And so that's what you're gonna wanna do is go vertical on these ones instead of going horizontal like we did. So whatever way your paint was, whatever way you put your paint on, that's how you're going to go over this. So just go over it lightly. And again, just kind of go over each part. And once you are done going over each part, you're gonna get a clean rag and just kind of wipe it down to get all the, like any kind of excess dust or whatever off of it. And then you can do your next coat. I'm gonna pull out my brush that we used before. It's still damp. I actually wrapped it up in a plastic bag. And then I also have my Belle brush, not my Belle brush, but my Dixie Belle Premium chip brush. And we're gonna do the same exact thing we did with the first coat. Just go the same way, long brush strokes, just the same way. You're not wanting to go up and down. You want to continue to go the same way that you went before. And that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna do that with each one. And if this is your last coat, then you're gonna go over this last coat with the steel wool gently. Again, we don't want to distress it. We're going to go over our last coat with the steel wool, and then you can either put, what I would suggest if you're going to do any kind of sealer on this, which doesn't require it, but if you are going to put any kind of sealer on it, as to not dull the metallic, I would use Dixie Belle's Gloss Clear Coat. Anything else may dull your piece. You know, if you're using wax, it's going to give it a waxy look, and you may lose some of that shine. So you don't want to lose your shine. So that's what you're going to do. Easy peasy. Just be patient, take your time, do thin layers, and just work that way, and make sure that you get all the debris off of your piece after you go over it with steel wool. You can even go over it with a little bit of a damp rag. Wait till it's totally dry, and then put your next coat of paint on. But this is how you get a perfect finish with metallic paints. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that it helps you get the most perfect metallic finish. And as always, the products used and how you can get the products will be down in the comments. And please subscribe and share, and thank you guys so much, and have an awesome, awesome day.